Hello, this is WatchWhojo. In this video, I'll be talking about 5 effect shots that you perhaps thought were shot in camera but were done with fakery, and 5 shots that you thought were perhaps done in camera but are actually effects. Some of these shots may not be entirely visual effects or entirely not visual effects, but a large component of them will be the opposite to what you thought, ideally. Number 5. Mars, the Empress of Mars. Obviously, it's clear that the Doctor Who production team have not filmed an episode on Mars, but typically, on episodes involving other planets, they would film it in a quarry and alter the colour saturation levels. For example, in Kill the Moon. This was filmed, I believe, in Lanzarote, and they made it look like the moon in visual effects post-production. However, for Empress of Mars, they decided that the scenes on the surface of the planet Mars towards the end of the episode would be done entirely on green screen, and the planet's surface would be added on behind them, instead of doing it on a location shoot. Number 4. The Hollywood Diner, the Impossible Astronaut. In the Impossible Astronaut, we go to a location known as the Hollywood Diner. This might seem like a perfectly ordinary scene, except for the fact that the Hollywood Diner is actually a location in Cardiff, but it was set in America. This involved the team superimposing America outside of the windows and doors of the diner. This gives the impression that they'd filmed location footage in America, when actually they're in Cardiff all the time. Number 3. Rose's Flat, Rose. In Series 1 of Doctor Who, of the reboot, there was a lot of budgetary constraints and a lot of pressure to make the show look good by not using very much. This included lots of slight visual effects that people wouldn't notice but made a big difference to the show. For example, the zips on the back of the prosthetics of the Autons' heads had to be removed. In shooting Rose's Flat, they used a backdrop of London to create the illusion of the Powell estate being on location rather than it being a set. However, this involved a very, very flat, obvious backdrop to the door of the Powell estate. So, in post-production, they actually blurred the background to make it look like it was done on a long camera. Luckily, the cameras used in Rose also gave this effect of a blurred background, so it didn't stand out too much. But it's rather obvious looking now that this blurred background is actually a way to cover up that it's entirely 2D. Number 2. William Hartnell to David Bradley, Twice Upon a Time. In the opening scenes of Twice Upon a Time, we were surprisingly treated to an unexpected moment. We see the moment where William Hartnell, in The 10th Planet, is transitioned into David Bradley into Twice Upon a Time, using a very, very clever face morph between the two. However, this shot is not all that it appears. When YouTuber John Smith was tasked with creating the transition, he found that the footage of David Bradley did not match up well enough to William Hartnell to create a smooth transition between the faces. What he instead did was he warped David Bradley's face to look like William Hartnell's face, close enough so that he wouldn't notice the difference at least. And then rather than morphing the two, he in fact just reversed the process and turned him back into David Bradley at the end of the shot. While this original shot is not entirely the exact same as the 10th Planet, it's close enough for you not to notice the difference, and it makes an almost seamless transition between the two. Arguably far better than the original plan of the shot was. And finally, number 1. The Hollywood Diner, Hell Bent. When the team returned to the Hollywood Diner, known in The Impossible Astronaut for Hell Bent, we are treated to reveal that the Hollywood Diner is actually clad as TARDIS. Clearly, the Hollywood Diner is not part of the BBC sets, but it would have been possible for them to create the TARDIS sets behind the door that leads to the bathroom, as we saw the Doctor coming out of in The Impossible Astronaut. However, this was not the case. What actually was done was Jenna Coleman opened the door, which simply led to the bathroom, and the TARDIS door was superimposed later in post-production. If you were not to know that the Hollywood Diner is a location rather than a set, it's quite probable you would never even notice this visual effect going on. Effects you thought were visual effects, but in fact aren't. Number 5. Elevate, Remembrance of the Daleks. Nowadays, Daleks are known quite well for flying and hovering all over the place. However, Remembrance of the Daleks treated us to our first ever sight of this happening. It's reasonable to assume that in the 1980s they might have had the technology to have a CGI Dalek fly up the stairs. After all, they had the first ever CGI title sequence. However, in an interview, Sylvester McCoy revealed that the process actually involved.
They got a real Dalek. They didn't even get a cardboard Dalek or one made of polystyrene. No, they got a big bloody Dalek. And then what they did was they got 2 scaffolding poles and stuck it into the Dalek's side. And the scaffolding poles then went through the wall, and there was another scaffolding pole angled to go up with the stairs, the incline of these stairs. And then on the other side, where the scaffolding poles went over that, were 10 men. And those 10 men got that poor Dalek, and they were trying to get the thing up the stairs, and the poor Dalek was getting very upset, because they forgot to take the little man out who was inside. And by the time they got to the top, he was throwing up all over the place.
Number 4. The Master's Hologram, SPYFALL Part 2. It would be easy to assume that all holographic effects were actually done on green screen and superimposed in later. However, you can actually see he was recording on the set, and the visual effects team behind Series 12 made it look like he had been edited in afterwards. Number 3. Big Ben is attacked by the Slitheen, Aliens of London. In Aliens of London, we see the Slitheen smash their way through London, mostly in CGI shots. However, the props team behind Series 1 had a better solution for the Big Ben crash. This would have been a very expensive and high-definition shot, and would have been almost impossible to get right under the budget, given the full load of the series to come. Instead, what was decided was a scale model of the exact clock face of Big Ben was created in miniature, and they made it collide with a prop of the CGI Slitheen ship to give the illusion of it crashing, mixed in with other CGI shots to give the full sequence. The extent of this shot can be seen by the fact that it was actually done on the wrong side of the prop, and rather than do it in CGI or build a second prop, they in fact reversed the shot. As you can see, the numbers are actually on the wrong side of the face. Number 2. The Master takes over the humans, The End of Time Part 1. In the climax of The End of Time, we see that all the humans on Earth are morphed with the Master's face. Effectively, he possesses everyone and takes over their bodies. The effect was achieved by having the actors turn their heads from side to side for a long time, under a camera filming at a lower frame rate than usual. When the camera shot was played back at normal speed, this meant that all the frames were compressed and it gave the illusion of super high speed movement. In actual fact, there is almost nothing happening in the shot that wasn't shot on camera on the day. Number 1. Claire in the bathroom, The Village of the Angels. In this shot we see Claire go into the bathroom, look in the mirror, and when she looks back up, she has angel wings on her back. This was shot entirely, except for the angel wings, in camera. To give you a demonstration, this is another version of a famous shot from Terminator 2, in which Sarah Connor operates on the Terminator's head. What is happening in this shot is we see Linda Hamilton in the foreground operating on a prosthetic version of Arnold Schwarzenegger's head. We are shown a supposed mirror, which is actually a hole in the wall, where the set is perfectly recreated in reverse on the opposite side. On this side of the wall, Arnold Schwarzenegger is sat with Linda Hamilton's twin doubling as Sarah Connor. This gives the illusion of her operating on Arnold Schwarzenegger's head. The benefits of this shot are that there is no need to worry about camera angles being caught in the reflection of the mirror because there is no mirror, and it also means that you are able to show a much more gruesome effect shot in operating on the Terminator, because it's a prosthetic head and not Arnold Schwarzenegger's head with a prop added to it. The same system is used for this shot of Claire. This shot would ordinarily have been quite complicated because you need to find a way to get the camera past Claire's head and also remove the camera from the reflection in the mirror. Jamie was so proud of the shot he requested that apart from the angel wings, they leave the shot entirely unaltered so that he could see the entire shot as he originally created it. This means there are some slight millimetre imperfect movements that give away the shot, but ultimately, unless you know the technique, you would never notice the difference.